just a month later and started what we called the Rising Star Expedition. We decided to do things differently. We live streamed it to the world. We went from 0 to almost 1 million followers over the next 3.5 weeks as we started a process of discovery. Within the second day, I knew I was wrong. It wasn't a hominid skeleton. It was more than one hominid skeleton because we had 2 right femurs. And bipedal hominids do not have 3 legs. By the end of the week, we've recovered more individual fossils that had been discovered at the richest hominid site in the world, which happened to be 1.5 kilometers away. In 1 week. It was an extraordinary time. You'll see in these images that were taken, the emotion that people had. We knew we were living in an extraordinary moment of discovery. But I'm going to pause for a moment, and I want you to see what we go through to get there. You saw a still image of Steve in it. Well, now this is the kind of passages that we take on the way there. This is Superman's crawl. This is the easy part. These are the easy ways of getting through these spaces that we have to journey. These scientists and explorers and the cavers that assist us have to go back and forth through all the time. Back 140 meters into a cave system to then climb down this chute complex, which is the hard part, and then enter the cave and then do this work. But it was extraordinary. We were in the midst of a great scientific moment. And by the way, I showed this picture. This is the entrance to the chute complex. This is where we have to stage and wait as a scientist or explorer. We'll go down that 12-meter thing into 17.5-centimeter squeezes that are torturous. And I just showed you this picture because I want to show you I am an equal opportunity child abuser. That's my daughter, Megan. To come out of that space at the bottom into the first of these chambers. These are heroic things these people do to make these discoveries. That hurts a lot, I assure you. And then in this chamber is where we discovered this extraordinary hall. By the end of that first expedition, we had discovered more individual hominid remains than in the entire history of the search for human origins in sub-equatorial Africa forever. One expedition. Because we could pick them up off the ground or gather them from a little excavation. And they were extraordinary fossils. Our fossils tend to be fragmentary in the past. I mean, as I said earlier, I could have made a career off a fragment of the mantle. We were finding skulls. We were finding articulated hands and feet. One of beautiful specimens. We found these extraordinary rich fossils, and it was an incredible discovery. And then we analyzed it in a different way. I decided to open it to the world's early career scientists. And what they found in that research was that we had found a new species of hominid, something with a tiny brain, a third the size of a human's, 450 cubic centimeters. A species that was primitive, it was a mosaic, it looked like it should be 2 million years old, had long, ape-like arms, but also long human-like legs and feet. All things mixed together, some that look like they come from millions of years ago, some from the relatively recent past. We would name the species Homo naledi, and we would publish it then in the open access journal eLife. But we didn't know how old it was until a few years later, where we finally got a date. Everyone told us in that period it would be millions of years old, and it would turn out that it would be only 250,000 years old. A primitive species out of time and place, at a place where we thought only humans existed in Africa. And more controversially, we actually told the world that we thought that this species of non-human was actually deliberately disposing of its dead there, because there was nothing else in there but them. It was hugely controversial. We were applying technologies that had never been applied before. LiDAR-like technologies like this, that you can actually look into the spaces and identify them in a way that we could never explore before, using robots and artificial intelligence to search these spaces. Then we found more of them in other chambers, all in unusual circumstances. Some of them just magnificently preserved, like the skeleton we named Neo. We had a creature that didn't fit. It changed the paradigm of the way that we looked at human origins. We thought that the pathway of human origins was an inevitable rise to a large brain, and there Homo naledi sat out of time and place with its tiny brain, but we were suggesting being something incredibly complex. More recently, we have found more of them in even more remote areas of this system by extending our exploration and expeditions. We've also applied technologies across this field to things like Sediba, using the most sophisticated machinery like the synchrotron in France to explore these. Looking into these areas and finding things like that down on the right-hand side is skin, 2 million years old. Whoops, there we go. We've also made more discoveries at these other sites. This is the remainder of that skeleton that Matthew found, making it the most complete hominid ever discovered, almost completely undistorted. That's what these caves offer. And they offer continued exploration. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of caves out there. And then COVID came along and ruined all my plans, because I designed the worst scientific program for a global pandemic. But then it made me look at other sites, like this one, the 105 site. And I know little things like that don't excite you. It was right next to Rising Star, but I didn't work it because it was too dangerous. And then we did during COVID, and we discovered more hominid fossils. We used new ways of looking. We used new ways of discovering. I started using young South African researchers because my scientists couldn't fly out, empowering them into higher positions. And you know what? They thrived. They thrived in those leadership positions. I realized we were actually blocking by creating this global open access. And so in the midst of this pandemic, when we were at times the only team working in the continent, sometimes in the world, in the field, because we are here, we made another extraordinary discovery of another one of the richest fossil hominid sites in the world. Well over 100 individual remains so far, and that number is just increasing constantly. And we have better things coming. This is from the Dinaledi Chamber itself, and you're going to be hearing about what that is in just a few months. But it gives us new insight of the quality of the preservation that we have in these caves and the chance to explore looking at these fossils in a different way. And never stop exploring. I lost 50 pounds earlier this year because I was reaching 57 and I wanted to get into that cave. 46 people had only ever been in there. And so I did. Just 10 weeks ago. It was the worst thing I've ever done in my life. It was absolutely horrible until I got into the chamber. And then we started making discoveries. And what I want to tell you is that we are on the verge of the most extraordinary period of science ever. We have made, someone like me does not say this lightly, we have made transformational discoveries because we have continued to explore, because we keep going back into these spaces. Often, as Nikki said, they were right in front of your face. What is the lesson from this for you? Mine was a science that had no hope, that had finished, that was over. It was not true. We had quit exploring. We had quit discovering. These images, by the way, you're the first people to ever see them, are 4K images that are going to allow you to be in that space in augmented virtual reality and see these discoveries as we announce them yourself. This is the greatest age of exploration, folks. This is an age where we have technology and the knowledge of hundreds of years of scientific research and the ability to apply it with our will and desire. And you in your field of conservation have perhaps one of the most willing up-and-coming generations that any scientist has ever spoken to. I know you don't think that's true, but it is. 25 years ago, we only talked to each other. You now talk to the whole world. I hope you learn from the exploration that we do in a field that thought it had ended. And one of the hardest sciences was the exploration of us. To never, ever